bother me till 12:15, so we're good.
Hey,
Okay.
we are good. We are live. Welcome, Brian. Thank you again for joining me to talk about everything Medicare. For a long time, I have been confused about, what we need to know. So thank you, Brian, for joining me. Let's start out with who needs Medicare?
So typically people who are on Medicare, from a lot of people just kind of are familiar with people who are over 65 and retired a lot of times. But Medicare is also for people who could be under age 65 that are disabled, and also available to people who are like an end stage renal failure as well, that Medicare is available to them. And that's basically their healthcare program as they get older and things.
So when do we sign up? Like when we hit 65, we call up. What do we do?
So you can apply. It's going to be like 6 months. I think it's 6 months before and 6 months after your birthday. So you have what's called an open enrollment period, and people want to do that. They don't want to be penalized on it, because if they don't enroll into Medicare Part A right away when they're supposed to, there is a penalty that is put upon them, and it's a 10% penalty plus times 2. So if they're 2 months or 6 months or 10 months late, that penalty is doubled in those situations. So they want to enroll and go onto this the socialsecurity.gov website, and they can do that there. It's pretty simple.
So I have a question. What if you choose not to take Medicare until you're 68 or 69 for some reason? Or
so there's a few situations where people do that. If they're still working, that's one way that they do it. They still would want to sign up for Medicare Part A. And then there are situations where people are on their spouse's programs, and they would stay on the health insurance plan as well. But again, they typically are going to go ahead and have Part A implemented for them, because that's part of what you paid your taxes in for that as well.
So you sign up for Part A, and then you don't have to pay anything for that, or you do
Correct.
pay for that.
You've paid over the years in your taxes, so yes.
Okay, but you don't have to pay additional for Part A.
Correct.
Okay, because that's a little complicated, because I have that situation where my husband is staying on his group plan because I'm not 65.
Right.
So he should have still signed up for Part A.
If he's 65, right, correct.
Okay. And he doesn't have to pay a fee for that.
Right. And I always tell people too to talk to their HR departments just to make sure how it's set up at their particular company, because I'm sure it can be a little different from company to company as well.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. So Part A, maybe we should talk about all these parts. What's Part A, Part B,
Yep. So it's confusing. It's like the alphabet. It's alphabet soup is what Medicare is. And Medicare is really easier than people realize. You have Medicare Part A, which we just talked about. That's considered the inpatient and hospital coverage that we paid in enough Social Security taxes over the years. That's given to us when we retire. Then you have Medicare Part B, which is for your outpatient services, and there is a charge for that. And there's a basic charge, and then there can be a surcharge depending on what someone's income looks like as well, so they can actually pay a higher premium on that also. Then you have Medicare Part C, which is basically you'd be giving up your original Medicare, and then you would go on to what's called a Medicare Advantage type of way. And I'm sure people have heard about the Medicare Advantage programs, but those are plans that typically you're going to be restricted to certain types of, certain hospitals, certain doctors in some cases. Those sometimes can limit people's, care ability as they do get older for themselves. And so we just suggest that if you're looking at a Medicare Advantage, I don't write them, I don't do them. But if someone is interested in doing that, they make sure that in their area that the hospital and the doctors they want to visit are going to, take care of them.
Okay, so if you forget C, but you would recommend A and B, and then D, is that the drug plan?
Correct. I like the original Medicare the best, and that's where you have Part A, Part B, and then you go to Part D for the drug program. Exactly.
And then you do pay a fee for that, though, some of that.
For Part B, you're going to have a premium. For Part D, you're also going to have a premium and some out-of-pocket co-pays for drugs as well.
Okay. And then we need a supplement as well. Is that correct?
Correct. Medicare does a good job, but it's kind of like those hospital gowns where they just don't quite cover everything you want it to cover. So the supplement will pick up what Medicare doesn't cover for the client.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So again, with this open enrollment, when is that again for people?
So with the open enrollment, so when you're dealing with Medicare supplements and things like that, really isn't not an open enrollment period for that. You want to get into it when you're going into Medicare for the first time. The open enrollment a lot of people refer to is the Part D, the drug program, that every single year they want to review their drugs for themselves. And that period runs from October, middle of October to the beginning of December. I think it's October 15th. I'm through December 7th, I believe, is the date.
Okay.
On that.
Okay,
that's been pretty consistent. And the key is that people really, really need to review this every year. It's not, a lot of agents, it's not our responsibilities to reach out to you to do that. So you can go onto the Medicare.gov website. You can do it yourself as well. But being in this business, I've helped people find that. But my own father, we missed him reviewing it one of the first years, and it probably cost him about $1,200 for the entire year extra. Because we didn't realize we needed to move him out of that plan every year. We had to review it for him.
So what I'm hearing is there are different plans that cover different drugs, or what are you looking for when you're reviewing?
It's basically going back into the systems. The formularies will change every year, and there's a lot of different companies that will do the prescription drug programs out there. So you got to put your formulary, you got to put your medication in, the frequency, the dosage,
Okay.
all that every year during that open enrollment period, that October, the October 15th to December 7th date.
Okay, so there's a formula, and you say, I'm taking these drugs, these are the, blah, blah, and then it'll say, well, these are the plans that will cover that.
Right. And it says how does it work at Walgreens? How does it work at CVS? And then you have your choices on the different ones that a person can go to for themselves.
Okay. That's really important to know. Did everybody hear that? You need to review your Part D every year and go through that process. Mark your calendars for October 15th. Who would know that? I bet people under 65 have no clue.
Most people don't realize that that's something you have to do. It's something that I feel that the people that are good in that business, I refer out to people to do my Part D for myself, because I don't get the credits to do that. I don't go through the continuing education for that. So I find them some good people to work with. And I even have a lot of clients that just go there themselves. They plug in their information and it tells them which plan is the best for them. It's really, really an easy system. Once somebody does it, they're like, oh my God, I thought this was going to be so hard. And if they're a little bit computer savvy, they can do it themselves.
And plus, now that, on your Walgreens app, it pretty much has all your drugs and how often you take them. So it's not like you got to collect all these bottles from all over and try and remember everything and the spelling of everything. And
they've made it easy on you, right?
It made it a little easier for us. Yes.
And then I want to mention also really quickly, because I don't want to just dismiss the Medicare Advantage plans either, because there are some good ones out there as well that function just like a traditional Medicare does, and it provides them a prescription drug program. For some people, those plans will make good sense for them. For some people, it will not. And then if someone does enroll in a Medicare Advantage, they are allowed to disenroll in that program within the first year if they're not satisfied with it.
Okay. That's good to know.
And there's an open enrollment period, which is real important. I just want to mention that really quickly. For the Medicare Advantage is January 1st through March 31st.
Okay.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure people understood that as well.
That's important. If you hadn't signed up for Medicare for one of these reasons, and then you want to, you have to wait till when? How can you do it?
Well, depending on how many years, I think I said months earlier, but then
Yeah.
depending how many years it's been since you did not get into into
Yeah.
Medicare and sign up for it, there would be penalties that would be assessed to people in that situation. That would be, for every year that they did not get into in the Medicare program, if they didn't enroll in
Okay.
Part A, they have that 2 times penalty. So if they didn't do it for 6 years, they're gonna pay that 10% penalty for 12 years in that situation on there. So it's always advantageous to get into it when you can.
But okay, so what if you get into A, but you didn't sign up for B or D?
So
Do you have
again,
to?
there will be penalties for that also with part B. If you don't sign up for it, you're basically going to have a 10% penalty for as many years as you didn't sign up for it. So if my last example, 6 years, if they didn't sign up for Part B, they'd pay 10% more for 6 years on their Medicare Part B premium on that.
Okay, that is good to
So,
know. I
yeah.
think you just saved me some money.
Right. Well, it's something you definitely want to do. And we do have some people like with the Part D, the drug program, you've got a few months. You don't have to get into it right away. Like if your birthday is January 1st, you don't want to get into it, I want to say, till February or March. There is no penalty if you do it that way. But the longer you wait, then they do start penalizing people for that and start charging you fees.
Okay, good to know. Okay, the next question, I think this is really, really important. Does Medicare pay for assisted living, home health care? What does it pay and what does it not pay? Because I think people have a real misconception about this.
Right. So Medicare is very, very limited when it comes to helping people with what we call custodial care at home, which is things that we do on a daily basis. And they're very limited on that side of it. Medicare will provide a little bit of skilled service, like some rehab and different things like that at home and also on an outpatient basis. But basically, Medicare, what they're designed to do is to get us back on our feet again, and they're not going to cover an extended period of time if we needed care for ourselves. New York has some benefits to keep people in their homes. That they're one of the more progressive states when it comes to that, but most states do not provide much at home. They're going to provide care for that high level care, that skilled care, where somebody requires IV feedings, things that are going to require more licensed, more qualified people to help them.
Yeah, I would say when my mom was sick, she went home and then, for a while, like she had to be on an IV for like, I don't know. They would come every once in a while to make sure everything was working um, and they gave her oxygen and, things like that. She did get were paid for through uh, Medicare, but no home health care, like no assistance, no assisted living. Let's talk about that. That is not covered by Medicare.
No, Medicare doesn't. They've tried some different things over the years, but that's obviously too expensive of a problem for them to take care of. And most people, and that's obviously one of my big sides of my business. Most people, when it comes to that type of care, pay for it out of their own pocket, or a lot of people will have, some people will have long-term care insurance for themselves to help pay for some of those services that they might receive at home or in an assisted living facility.
And that is one of the really important things we have to reiterate here, that people need to have a plan, whether it's to buy long-term care or they have a big bucket of money. They can't just say, well, they can, but it would not be to their advantage to just say, oh, it's not going to be a problem. Put it out of my mind and I'll worry about that then. Because there isn't some they that's going to take care of them. So
Right. It's a lot of people, unfortunately, as we've talked before too, they react to their problems. There's not a lot of planning sometimes before, these types of events happen.
right, and that is why people should call you and ask these questions. I learned a lot today, and I am going to look into some of these things right away. And I'm in the business, so imagine what people that it's just not something people talk about, and then they don't know, and then it's too little too late.
Right. It's tough when you want to dictate your future, and you don't have it laid out and planned for people. People are going to make their own decisions for you at the end of the day.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much for being with me today, Brian. I want everybody to have a wonderful weekend. And if you need Brian, want to ask any questions, his information is on my website and on my Facebook page, or just call me, reach out to me, and I will get you in touch with Brian. Thank you for joining me today.